What is up? I'm Ben Allen, and welcome to 3 in the Key, the show where we let you into the mind of some of the most interesting sports minds in the world, ranging from journalists all the way to cheerleaders. Today we will have KJHK's Tim Cornell come talk about the outlook of the NBA post-trade deadline, and Carolyn Kipp from the KU cheer team is here as well today to talk KU athletics and a unique way of watching sports. But first, let's get you started on what you missed. And then there was one. Wichita State, as you may know, is the only undefeated team in the NCAA left. The Wichita State Shockers are 30-0 and only have one game left in the season against Missouri State. The Shockers would be the first undefeated team since St. Joe's in 2004, which coincidentally lost in the conference tournament and was outed of the NCAA tournament in the regional final. Mike Trout finally is getting paid, just not as much as we all thought it would be. Trout signed a one-year, $1 million contract. The deal is pre-arbitration and more of a here, be happy with us gesture than the real money that he's planning to get. Trout, who led the MLB in wins above replacement, or WAR, the last two seasons, will be looking at about a 6-year, $150 million contract, according to reports. Well, Raymond Felton is in the news, and it's not because of the Knicks cannot win a game. It's because he is in some legal trouble this time. The Knicks point guard turned himself into police for illegal firearm possession after an issue for his arrest. He has been released on bond, but now the question is his future in the NBA? Obviously, he did not bring a gun into the locker room such as Gilbert Arenas, but he has had trouble with guns now, and look at Gilbert. He went from being one of the best scoring point guards arguably in the league to now not being able to get a job over here in the U.S. And with New York being as tough as it is on gun laws, Felton could be the next Plexico Burress. Speaking of football, Heisman Trophy winner Jameis Winston may be a beast on the football field, but yesterday he took the field for another sport. The dual sport athlete Jameis Winston took on his childhood team, the New York Yankees. Winston did not pitch, but he did play the field and went 0 for 2 at the plate. The Yankees, who are an aging team, I'm sure would love to have Winston play on the field for them, and maybe not to mention the Jets as well. But hey, the last Florida State player to play for the Yankees? Deion Sanders. Well, Jonathan Martin bullying drama in Miami appears to be over. Martin has now made it clear to the Finns that he would like to split from the team that has caused him so much mental anguish. Martin hopes to keep pursuing an NFL career after all of this has blown by. Now that you're up to speed, let's take a break real quick, and when we return, KU cheerleader Carolyn Kipp joins us. Stay tuned. Well, welcome back to 3 in the Key. Here now with us is the always wonderful Carolyn Kipp. Carolyn, how are you doing today?
I'm great, thank you.
Well, we're very glad that we could get you on the show today, and we'll just start right off. You're a cheerleader here at the University of Kansas. You're a sophomore, and this is your second year as well doing the cheer squad. Is correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I've always been the baseball player, so I'm not used to having cheerleaders out, cheering for us. How did you get into cheerleading?
Well, I actually didn't start as a cheerleader. I was a competitive gymnast for 11 years, and I was in 6th grade, and I was spending 18 hours in the gym, so I felt like that was a huge commitment.
18 hours?
Yeah, I just felt like it wasn't really for me anymore, so I decided to retire, and then once I did that, I started to cheer at my middle school and high school.
Okay, and now you ran track as well, right?
I did. I ran track.
Now, how did those schedules, did they ever conflict at all in high school?
Not really. They stayed pretty separate, but they kind of, clashed a little bit, but it wasn't anything, too bad.
Okay, so I know this year you guys are not doing any competitions, in other states, but you guys are doing you're doing another event that is similar to that, as well as also doing cheering for the games. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we weren't able to go to UCA Nationals. We had commitments, which was cheering for the basketball team, which...
Obviously.
Yeah, and so we actually decided that we still wanted to compete, so 6 of us decided to enter NCAA College Nationals and do a partner stunt, which is more individual. So we decided to go that route, and we're really excited about it.
Okay.
And so we go to Daytona for that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so Daytona, Florida.
Yes.
So, okay, obviously you do basketball games. That's a big deal, obviously, here at the University of Kansas. If you're here, you obviously know about the basketball team. Mm-hmm. Is that your favorite sport to cheer for, though? Is that your favorite sport that you get to do?
It is only because I'm so used to cheering for football games in high school that it was really fun to learn about a different sport that I just never really paid much attention to.
Okay.
And cheering the games really forces you to know a little bit more about sports, which I never really known before.
I was going to ask you. So, obviously, you're on the sideline for this. In so many times during the games, you are towards us trying to see if we can get into the game as a fan. What is it like watching a game? Do you get to catch any of the glimpses of the action?
We do. It's a lot of fun to cheer on the floor because you're right in the middle of the game. And I'd gone as a fan one time, and it just wasn't the same experience, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Really?
I definitely like being on the floor.
Okay. Now, basketball, you said you've learned a little bit more. Who's your favorite player on the team?
I don't really know. I don't know any of them personally, so I don't really have that bond with any of them. But, you know, it's just fun to watch all the guys make really big plays, and it gets the fans excited, and it pumps us up, so that's always fun.
Do you, outside of watching KU basketball, do you watch any other basketball at all?
No, I don't.
No, but hey.
I'm not really big into sports.
Go figure, right? But you do
Yeah.
an amazing job, obviously,
Thank you.
on the floor there.
Yeah.
So that's not going to be an issue there. So basketball is obviously one of the sports you do. What is another sport that you enjoy doing as far as cheer goes?
Well, I really enjoyed track when I was in high school. I was just good at it from the start. I never really had to learn anything. It just came naturally. And I did long jump, and I did the short sprint, so the 4x1, the 4x4 was my longest run.
Cool. So now I'm just going to throw a little bit of some curveball at you real quick. Everyone knows obviously there's a cheer team and there's a dance team. Do you guys interact at all? And I know you guys do routines occasionally together. What is the interaction like between those two?
Well, we have different practice times, so we never get to see each other too much, but it's definitely really fun to see each other outside of practicing, and we travel together, so we really get to know them that way. And at camp, we travel with each other, and just basically we hang out more outside than really, during games.
So there's a pretty good bond between the two then?
Yeah, there is.
So there's no competition of okay, let's see if we can knock out one of the girls before, so we can try to see if we can get more floor time, right?
No, we enjoy working with them, and this year has actually been one of the first years that we've done the halftime performances with the dancers, and that's been a fun experience because we've been able to work closer with the dancers, which has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was neat. I know at the Oklahoma game, I was actually a fan. I wasn't working media for this game. I was able to look out there, and it was neat to see. Often we see at a lot of schools, and I know at KU it's been like that at a time in which you just see one or the other out there.
Yeah.
But it was neat to see the two interact, and actually performing something that, I know all the fans got a kick out of it. It was enjoyable to see.
It was a lot of fun to work with them. We got to know each other on a different level than more than just friends. It felt more as we were one team instead of two.
Okay. So obviously, KU, big basketball school, ESPN's there a lot. There's a lot of nationally televised games. Your face has been on quite a few of these moments, not to mention commercials and things. When we've seen, we see KU, we see the KU cheerleaders. What is it like hearing from friends, from back home, or have you ever heard stories of, oh, we just saw Carolyn on TV or anything like that?
Well, recently, the last game, I was on TV, and my friends I got a couple texts after the game saying that they saw me on TV, and they were with a bunch of their friends, and their friends just didn't believe them, and they had to pull it up on Facebook that they were friends with me. And so it's funny to hear that, and it's nice to get back in touch with a few of them.
And I'm sure the family loves to see that as well, right?
Oh, yes.
Now, you have family in Georgia, right?
I do have family in Georgia, but I also have family in Texas and Iowa as well.
So obviously, whenever they can get a chance to see your bright, shining face on television, that's their moment to see their Carolyn on there.
Yes, it is.
Okay, we'll get you out on one more question. Obviously, you have to interact with fans a lot because that's, the cheerleaders are for. They're trying to get the fans involved. What is probably the weirdest thing a fan has ever, done? The weirdest interaction you've had with a fan at a game?
Well, we mingle before the game, so we walk around Allen and we talk to people. And there was a fan who actually stopped me and told me that I was his favorite cheerleader. And I asked him if he tells that to everyone, and he said, no, just you. And so I thought that was kind of funny, but I didn't know how much he was joking around or not. But
So this guy's probably got a mural of you up on your wall, all that kind of stuff. Just
I hope not.
Hopefully not. Well, Carolyn, we want to thank you so much for coming in
Yeah.
and just chatting with us a little bit of basketball. When we return, KJH Cane's own Tim Cornell will come in to the desk to discuss a little bit of the NBA post-trade deadline. You'll want to stay tuned. Well, welcome back to 3 in the Key, and now join with me is KJHK's very own Tim Cornell. Tim, how you doing, buddy?
I'm great. How are you?
Not doing too bad. Ready to talk some NBA here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let's get it started with. Okay, so the biggest topic that is going around the NFL, and I think a lot of the sports world as a universal whole right now, is cursing. There has been a lot of talk in the NFL of late that there have been rumors from executives that they want to try to see if they can remove cursing, well, not even cursing, they want to remove the N-word specifically from the NFL locker rooms, from being on the field. They want it to be something you can get a penalty for. Now, the NBA, which is obviously your devout following, got a little bit of an interesting piece here today from Chris Bosh, the Miami Heat center forward. And he came out and basically said, I don't even want that. I want a complete overhaul, no cursing at all. What is this something that, could be done, should be done in the NBA?
Could it be done? Absolutely not. Should it be done? Probably not either. There's been a lot of rules put in lately to, you see guys like get teed up for showing like any emotion, and it's a very emotional sport. Anyone who's played any sport, if you really put your all into it and you've been playing it that long, every single game you're trying to do your best and win. And there's a lot of emotions that go around. Sometimes they go too far, and that needs to be, you need to get technical. But cursing, TVs are used to it. If you're watching and there's a random sound blip that's gone, that's usually what that is. It'll be impossible to take away. I think the interesting debate about the NFL trying to get rid of the N-word, that one is a little bit more possible, I think, than cursing altogether. But I don't think it's really possible. Nor do I think it's needed, really.
It's just something that it seems like, unless it's directed in a derogatory way, any cursing, whether it's the N-word or anything else, I think that could be something that's a little bit closely more regulated. I think, we hear with a lot of, even in high school baseball, you yell something at an ump, that is profane, it's going to be something that you can get potentially kicked out of a game for. It's something you can get tossed, you're out kind of stuff. And I feel like that might be more possible, but I don't know if a complete overhaul, because as well as I do, like you just said, the amount of energy that you have to put into these games and the amount of just pure emotion that goes into these sports, that's just a part of it. Anywhere you go, even in the workplace, you're going to hear cursing.
Oh, yeah.
It's just something that goes along with it, and I just think as a complete overhaul is going to be too much.
Yeah, it is, and you're right. If it's directed at a person, in the action of if they're cussing at another player, then that definitely is not okay. But if they just say it out of frustration for something that happened in the play, or they're saying it to themselves, which is usually the case, they miss a layup or a rebound, whatever. That's usually where it comes out. And I would say most NBA players are actually really good, because these guys are used to being in the limelight. They're used to being in interviews. They all have pretty good filters.
And often they're mic'd up during the games, which they know they'll be a little bit more cautious. They'll be more cautious. So, okay, so we're going to get into the actual NBA playing side of things / numbers. The NBA trade deadline, as you know, just went down last week. There were a lot of deals that went through, and there were a lot of deals that didn't go through.
Yeah.
You're looking at the NBA right now, and when you have that trade deadline, that is your time to be able to add a piece to try to make that final push for, not even a playoff run, but a championship at times. There were a lot of deals that went done. What do you think? Who was the biggest winner after all this was said and done?
There wasn't really a lot of big ones. The past couple of years, trade deadline has been the whole day. I'm pretty active on Twitter. Everyone's up here. It's going crazy. There's always talks going on, and then usually at the end of the day, nothing happens. And mostly the biggest impacts were teams just dumping players in order to free up roster spots. So I think the interesting part is not the trade deadline itself, but what's going to go on now with these teams that have open roster spots. A lot of teams are getting bought out that did get traded, so they might be moved around. So I think we're going to see way more action now than we did on trade deadline.
Okay. Now, the biggest name arguably traded during the deadline was Evan Turner. He's a guy who's averaging close to 17 points, averaging close to 17 points for Philadelphia. Obviously a team that's struggling, without Narlands Noel after having moved Drew Holiday. And they ended up moving him for Danny Granger, who has been an 18-point scorer for most of his career, but has been, impacted with injuries lately. How much of an impact is Evan Turner going to make on the Indiana Pacers as a deadline move,
Well, I've gone back and forth on this one because at first I thought it was a really great trade because, Evan Turner has been great in Philadelphia. Danny Granger has been, ever since he really hurt his knee, hasn't really been able to do anything. He just kind of jacks up a lot of threes. But if you look at Evan Turner's numbers and the situation he's in, he really had the opportunity to shoot a lot and be a star because he
had to take shots.
Yeah, and he probably was the best player on the 76ers, which if Evan Turner's your best player, you're never going to win. You're never going to have a positive season. But if he's your fourth or fifth best player, like he is on the Pacers, that could be good. I think it'll take him a lot more time to adjust because he's not going to be the guy anymore.
No, and he'll be backing up probably Lance Stevenson and a little bit of Paul George at that, combo position.
Yeah, but if he does get comfortable and likes the role he plays there, it could be big for them.
Okay, now obviously with the trade deadline, there are a lot of deals that go through that you just leave scratching your head, like why would a team do this? And often it is, like you were saying, to remove for a roster spot or just try to eliminate money in general. But often, sometimes the biggest losers are the teams that didn't make a deal or couldn't make a deal and don't really have any momentum going forward as a team. Were there any teams like that you thought at this deadline, that like the Heat or somebody who didn't make that impact deal?
Well, I think this is actually one of our topics coming up, and you talked about it earlier, Raymond Felton. Mm-hmm. I think the Knicks needed to do something. They did end up buying out Meta World Peace and someone else who doesn't really play.
Bino Udrih.
Yeah, that's right. But they didn't make any trades, and I think that's going to be bad for them. I mean, the season's already, they're not going to make it. They could make the playoffs, probably not though.
Logically speaking, a team that's won like 7 of their last 9 games is probably not going to with a bad record already.
But because they didn't show any effort to try and get pieces to put around Melo, it's going to hurt them ultimately because he's not going to want to stay there. If he put up like 43 points last night or something, still lost. So it's got to be frustrating for him to be at this team that's losing and losing and losing and seeing them not make any moves during trade deadline.
Do you think the Heat was one of those teams that maybe should have made a deal to try to improve that ultimately didn't? I mean, they moved Roger Mason Jr. away, which I don't
freed up a roster spot.
They freed up a roster spot, essentially,
and
for possibly a Danny Granger.
Exactly. And I think they didn't necessarily have the pieces to trade using trade to get the pieces they needed, but I think clearing up a spot could help them sign. There's a lot of good players out there who are getting bought out, who haven't been on a roster all season, who can make an impact. And I think they were waiting for those kind of things to happen instead of actually trading for a player.
And I think anyone who knows you knows you're Mr. LA and quite a big Clippers fan as well. Mm-hmm. And the Clippers are one of those teams who was able to make a pickup by, addition by subtraction and then later adding another piece in Glenn Big Baby Davis. With the additions that they made to a team that's already solid, with JJ Redick really starting to hit his mark now, and Jamal Crawford coming off the bench and being an impact scorer, along with the Chris Pauls, the Blake Griffins, the DeAndre Jordans. Is this a team that you can look at and say, this is a team that could possibly go for the championship?
Yeah, they are a championship contender, and I try to say that without being super biased, but the West is just loaded. It really is loaded. And with Doc Rivers there, DeAndre Jordan has become, he's leading the league in rebounding and field goal percentage, which is something that not many people have ever done before. And JJ Redick is hurt, and he's potentially out for the rest of the regular season, which hurts him a lot.
Oh, he is now out. Okay.
Yes, and it's just various injuries, so that's kind of a bummer. But in his absence, Jamal Crawford has stepped up. He's been unbelievable. Definitely 6th Man of the Year candidate.
As always.
He has started a lot of games, though, so that might hurt his chances. But Blake Griffin has been a beast. Chris Paul's been kind of hurt, but he's still Chris Paul. And a lot of their bench has stepped up. Matt Barnes, Darren Collison. So I think they're definitely a championship contender. They need to work on defense. Offensively, they beat the Thunder last week, and it was just an offensive battle, basically. And, if you can out-offense the Thunder,
you're going to be in good shape.
You're going to be in great shape.
How happy is that team that they didn't move Darren Collison for Raymond Felton right now? Obviously, Amon Shumpert would have been the centerpiece of that deal anyway, but just the idea that they would have had these issues right now.
Yeah, that's great now. I actually was wishing that they did make the trade because I like Amon Shumpert a lot. I don't like Raymond Felton that much, but I really want Amon Shumpert. But now I'm really glad it didn't happen because, well, the gun thing. So.
And that's just bad. That's just bad press, regardless how you look at it. No matter if he's not even a guy who's making an impact, he's still on the team.
Yeah, most of the Clippers players, or all of them basically, haven't really had any incidents like that. They've all had really clean records, and the last thing you want right now is a veteran on your team who is, shaking things up in a bad way and getting bad press.
Okay. And I'll get you out of here on one final question and a little bit of just a general question here. Jason Collins, he's the first openly gay NBA player to now play. He signed a 10-day contract. He's now gotten his jersey that is now being for sale, and that's been a great positive thing, I think, for the New Jersey Nets because it's money and just for all of those who are pro-gay rights in general. Now, the question that is the bigger basketball topic here is, will he be re-signed past the 10-day contract? Is that something that you think is actually going to happen?
That's tough. It could happen. Jason Collins doesn't have a whole lot to offer. He, statistically wise, if you look at him, really nothing. But in advanced analytics, he sticks out a lot. He can, for some reason, he can shut down Dwight Howard. If you look at Dwight Howard's numbers,
you told me about that.
Yeah, if you look at Dwight Howard's numbers, not being guarded by Jason Collins and being guarded by Jason Collins, they're drastically different. So
if he only plays the Rockets, the Nets only play the Rockets, he's the most valuable player possibly.
He probably would be. But hopefully, they can. You don't mind having a player on your team who will play 6-7 minutes, get 3 fouls, get a couple boards, just like kind of be rough, kind of like Tariq Black is. So, I could see him getting signed for the rest of the season. The Nets at this point don't really have anything to lose, so they might as well.
Cool. Well, Tim, I want to thank you so much for coming on today. Also want to thank Carolyn Kipp for coming on today and doing a spectacular job telling us a little bit more about the KU cheerleading and what it's like watching the game. And since my day is now ruined that the Pirates have defeated the Yankees 6-5, I think it's about time that we call the show quits. And make sure you tune in next week for Farzine Vasugian and Andrew Curtis, who joined the desk to talk a little bit of senior night basketball and KU basketball in general. And we will also have an interview with Michigan beat writer Simon Kaufman, and you're definitely not going to want to mix that after our loss to Michigan in the tournament last season. But for now, I'm Ben Allen, and this has been 3 in the Key. Catch you next week.